Welcome back to the Summoning Circle. I'm your host, Helen. Since announcing our Web3 thesis, we've seen an amazing response. Lots of excitement and lots of curiosity. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can find it in this video description. It'll show you what we mean when we say we're making a game first and where our Web3 economy fits into that vision. We've also received some really great questions in response, and today I've summoned Bruce and Nico to answer them. Many of you will recognize the CPO of Bisonic. Bruce here has appeared in lots of our Runiverse roundtable discussions on Discord, and some of our biggest initiatives, like integrating partner token events into the Runiverse, stem directly from him. Nico is our game economy designer. As part of that, he's been analyzing and fine-tuning our systems throughout the beta tests. Welcome, Bruce and Nico.
Glad to be here.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm so glad you both could make time. Obviously, as we lead up to that launch, it's very busy for you both. So thank you so much for doing this. To get us started, I'm hoping you can both tell us how you got into the Forgotten Runiverse project in the first place.
For me, it's been a long journey. So I started I think on this journey maybe as like an 11-year-old or 12-year-old. So I played a lot of the early MMOs. So as a kid, played Ultima Online and EverQuest. Growing up playing those, right? Those were the first player-driven economies, the first MMOs, and that for me kickstarted this journey. That's why a lot of the mechanics are the way they are in this game. So for me, this has been a long time coming. Grew up playing those games, and then eventually went into the game industry and worked for 20 years or so, and worked on games like Elder Scrolls Online, and finally made it here to be working on a game that in a lot of ways is calling back to the past childhood that I had a long time ago.
Oh, that's awesome. How about you, Nico?
Well, I joined the game almost a year ago. And for me, it's something similar to Bruce. I grew up playing MMO games like RuneScape, like World of Warcraft. So when I learned about Forgotten Runiverse, it reminded me a lot about those games. And for me, that feeling of being able to enter into an open world, gather my own resources, doing my own progress, and like making my own adventure was something that was really nice for me on this game.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way. So for the questions that I've pulled today, these are based on responses that we've had to sharing our Web3 thesis. And I'm going to share some of the comments we've had as we go along here. The first one is from NFT Sasha, who says, "Good stuff. Congrats, guys. Console approvals is super cool too." One asks, "Could you delay till next quarter? If I start playing Runiverse, progress on Unchained is GG. Think of poor me, okay? Thank you very much." Now, I know we won't be delaying our launch. Sorry, NFT Sasha. But I'd love to get some more details about how that launch is going to look from a game economic standpoint. We have plans for partner tokens and eventually our own token. Will the full scope of all of this be integrated into the Runiverse at launch?
So at launch, we'll have a really robust economy, but things like the partner token and the XP token will not be there at launch. So at launch, you'll be able to earn quanta, and you'll be able to use that quanta to build up buildings and to mint items, but you won't be able to exchange quanta for partner tokens yet. We'll have an announcement coming, hopefully not too long after launch, to announce the first partner. And after we have that announcement, then everybody will have in their mind exactly when it's coming that you'd be able to claim partner tokens. But yeah, the overall roadmap would be, we launch, you can earn quanta, you can use quanta in game, and you have a decision, am I going to save the quanta for the claim? Am I going to use the quanta to build up my buildings? And it's up to you what you want to do with it, but it'll be usable day one, and you'll have the option of saving it up for quanta, saving it up for claims later on, or saving it up for XP later on.
Oh, that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to announcing that first partner token event. That's going to be hype.
Me too. I think people will be very excited about the partner.
I think so too. Do you want to add anything, Nico, about those early economics and what you'll be looking at maybe from a balancing point of view?
Well, in launch, we will be looking a lot all the economy data we have. Like we have a lot of dashboards to be sure the economy is stable and that all players can enjoy the game while they progress on it.
Wonderful. Our next question here is from Ponyboy, whom you might remember as the holder of Alchemist Casper of the Belfry, a wizard who made an appearance during our Rift events. Ponyboy says, so bullish. What people don't understand is that this is not just another Web3 game. This will be the game to finally bridge the gap. People won't give a damn if it's a Web3 game or a Web2 game because it's going to be fun. They'll just want to play. So, Bruce and Nico, I know that you've both been thinking a lot about the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 gaming, just like Ponyboy here. I'm sure many of those watching will also be curious to know how the game is going to feel to Web 2 gamers who aren't interested in hooking up a crypto wallet when they play. So, Bruce, can you comment on how we're bridging that gap from a game economics perspective?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing to make this a game for everyone, and I think we don't look at it as being, this is a Web3 game and this is a game that is just trying to maybe acquire Web2 users, or this is a Web 2.5 game. I think we just look at this is a really good game and it takes advantage of Web3 technology. And Nico and I, like, we grew up playing games that had really similar economies. So we see, I think, the connection to those games very directly. When people were playing Ultima Online, EverQuest, and World of Warcraft, there were gigantic secondary markets for those games. So, I actually had a friend that did this first in Ultima Online, then in EverQuest and World of Warcraft, where he like started a gold farming operation, right? Like he was one of the first gold farmers back in the late 90s, right? He ended up creating a website called MMORPG Warehouse where you could go to and buy gold, and eventually was so deep into it that he had operations running in China helping him farm gold. So a lot of this stuff, even though it seems very new, it's actually stuff that the industry has been in contact with for a very long time. And in a lot of ways, like the solution to all this, was maybe something that wasn't ideal. So a lot of this stuff was happening early on with MMOs, and it led to free to play. That was the industry's answer to it. So basically, you had a lot of these games where there was all this economic value that was happening outside of the game, and a lot of the game makers, they were threatened by it to a certain extent and tried to crack down on it. So think of things like people listing their accounts on eBay, the accounts getting banned because they list them on eBay, or people finding gold farming operations and trying to shut down and mass ban all the players involved in it. This was the struggle that people were wrestling with then. And in a lot of ways, free to play was some people's answers to that, where, okay, well, why don't we just sell the items directly to people? With Web3 technology, we can tackle those same problems that people were tackling in the late 90s and in the early 2000s and really solve it with Web3. So we aren't in this situation anymore where people are trading on secondary markets and we're not be able to participate in this, the game developers. So it's something that can be beneficial for everybody. So that's our big belief, is that you have something now where you can see basically what was happening in World of Warcraft, what was happening in EverQuest, what was happening in Ultima Online, all this activity that was almost seen as illegitimate. You can see how everybody can work together now and benefit from the farmers, can benefit from the developers can benefit from the farmers, that it isn't this thing where everybody is at odds with each other now. I have this big belief that this is something new, something similar to the emergence of free to play, that this isn't just Web3 and that there's Web 2.5, but this is something new that's going to happen, and eventually will become obvious to everybody that this is really the new model for how games are developed. But it's just, we're very early. We're in the period where free to play was in, right, where it was looked at as illegitimate, it was looked at as scammy. There was really, really huge skepticism around it. We're in that very early period where it's not obvious to everybody, even if it might be inevitable that it ends up being an economic powerhouse in the gaming industry. that's the bigger picture vision. More practically, right? There's stuff that we're doing to make the game be very accessible, which is you don't need a wallet to play. You can play the game just by creating an account. You start playing, and then you can earn quanta. And then if at some point you want to start exploring the off-chain aspects of the game, if you want to mint items, if you want to claim using your quanta, then that's where you have the opportunity to start onboarding with the Web3 aspects of it. So we don't force you when you don't know anything about Web3 yet. We don't force you into it. You're sort of able to do that when you're ready. And it looks like this is working. So we have actually stats from surveys that we've done in previous events. And for 20% of the players, this is their first Web3 game. So we're onboarding people from outside of Web3. We're onboarding normal gamers. We have a lot of people that play Albion Online that are coming into the game, and it's working for them. So we think that this is working. We think this makes sense, and 20% is pretty huge for us when we haven't really started to reach out to Web2 gamers.
That's like the best response to this question I've ever heard. I'm feeling all inspired, Bruce. That's awesome.
Well, I think we are doing something that really is a big deal, but it doesn't sort of strike us every day working on it, you know. And I think we are at the forefront of something that's new, that is big. I mean, it's on us to actually deliver on that, to, you know, not just deliver a game that works, but to deliver a game that fulfills all these promises and hopes that people have for the potential of Web3. But I think everything is positive so far. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the launch, and I'm excited about the journey that the launch sets us on, because this is early access. This is just the beginning. The full economy isn't there. There's going to be bugs. There's going to be lots of rapid changes and adjustments. But I'm excited to sort of start this journey this month.
It's incredible. Yeah. Okay. I want to give you a chance to jump in, Nico, if you'd like. But my gosh, Bruce, it was such a good response.
Well, as Bruce said, we want a Forgotten Runiverse to be a game that anyone can play, whether or not they have knowledge about the crypto world. So the economy was designed that way. The core game loop is fully accessible to anyone. So you don't need a wallet to progress and get to the end game. But at the same time, for players that are into the Web3 space, there is this extra layer of true ownership where players can own land, can mint items, and engage with all that part of the game. But again, that's like something completely optional. If you don't know about Web3, you don't need it. If you learn while you play, then you can join. So yeah, our idea is to make this game fun for Web2 players and give Web3 players these extra elements.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm looking forward to that launch. I'm all hyped up now. My last question here is from Aru Alex, who made this incredible infographic. He did this by assembling info from our white paper, our live paper, our blog, Discord, and a bunch of videos. So if anyone watching wants to take a closer look, you can follow the link in this video's description. Obviously, there is a lot to our ecosystem here. I'm wondering if you can talk more about how we're actually going to balance it.
You know, this isn't like just an equation and then you kind of can predict the future and everything's going to be great. You know, we try hard to, in advance, to design everything in a way that makes sense, but it's really hard to know what's going to happen when you put players in. So one thing that we've been very, very, very deliberate about doing is to give ourselves lots of controls and lots of ability to tune things as we see what happens. So to be specific, right, there's resources in the game, there's materials in the game, and those materials enter the world at sort of a rate, like, you know, X amount of wood goes into the world, you know, Y amount of lumber goes into the world, right? Like 500 lumber goes into the world, you know, a day. And the way that the game is set up is that the gathering nodes that people harvest from and the amount of resources that go into the plots that people own, that is kind of coming from that fixed pool. And the game is trying to regulate. It's trying to say that you can't go above that 500, that limit that's on that resource. And that number, that limit, that's a limit that we have the ability to change. So this is something as an example that gives us control to balance the economy. We can see if there's too much of a resource that's going into the world, and then we can tune it down. We can see if there's not enough of a resource going in. And I mean, we've seen this already in the rifts where there might just happen to not be enough oak for a recipe. And we have the ability to see that happening and adjust it. For quanta, I mean, there's similar principles in play where there's a certain amount of quanta that we're saying should go into the world per day. And the game is trying to give out just that much, no more, no less. And depending on how many players are playing, if they're harvesting from plots and plot owners are getting more quanta because of that, or people are rolling in the gacha and getting more or less, it's dynamically adjusting to try to hit that fixed rate at the end of the day. So these are the types of controls that give us the ability to not inflate quanta into nothing and to control the economic inputs into the game. Nico, has an economy background. You can speak more about the types of things that we're looking at, but we've tried to give ourselves the ability to look at what's happening and then react to it and have controls over the system so that it doesn't get kind of completely out of control with us, out of control of what we would expect.
Behind all this, we have also a lot of dashboards what we are going to be looking into with this system that Bruce talked about, and the dashboards plus other spreadsheets we have where we have some models. Our idea is to be able to control the economy and at the same time being able to analyze different scenarios before doing changes in game.
Okay, so the dashboards are really where we're tracking a lot of this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Cool. And I didn't know about it on the back end, making an effort to only give out so much each day. Like, that's such a good check. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems that I think that we saw in older MMOs, or that we've seen other people run into, that we're trying to solve for. Some are just very basic things, like if you have a resource that's just determined by player activity going into the game, purely player activity, then you have a problem potentially because you don't really have any limiter on bots and everything. So imagine that you had something where if you have 1,000 people that go into the game and the resources that go into the game to scale based on the people that are going to the game. If a lot of those people are just coming in not to contribute and stay long term, but to extract, you potentially have massive inflation just because of bots and other things that come in. Some of these ideas are meant to counter that, right? Like having fixed resource limits. We also have other stuff that's part of the monetization in the game. For example, boosts are a way that we try to limit the impact that bots and other people can have, where the amount of resources that you get, the amount of items and drops and stuff that you get, that when you're not boosted, it's really not that high. So people can get free boosts, but there's this kind of point where if you want to grind the game, 24 hours, 7 nonstop with a lot of bots or something like that, where there's sort of a premium conversion point. So there's these ideas that we have that are meant to, try to give us more control over the amount of, extraction and botting that's possible, and to allow us to manage the economy so that it doesn't kind of just go completely out of control when we have a bunch of players flooding.
Yeah, that is really interesting. True, the bots, that's already some good checks going on there. I'm sure we can't give all the bot details because it's a bit of an arms race there. We don't want to give it all away, but I know you've been thinking a lot about that too, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up that I didn't cover with my questions here?
Well, I think one thing is again going back to the early access part of this. So this is the beginning. So this is where we're just figuring things out, and we're figuring things out without everything that we want to exist in the economy being present yet. We don't have building glyphs in yet. There's a lot of mechanics kind of around. One of the things that we really believe in is giving players incentives for working with other players on nearby plots, and that really isn't developed that much yet. So there's all these other systems that will be coming in. To some people that might be well, I wish it was all in now, but there's actually something exciting, I think, about starting in a game before it's there and being able to kind of take advantage of all the stuff right when it happens and learn it and sort of adjust. It's to some extent, it's like a live service event when you have these adjustments coming in. So it's an exciting time to be part of it because you're seeing things change very quickly. you know, once the game's been out for 10 years, it's sort of crystallized a bit, right? And you sort of just have the variations on a lot of similar events and stuff to try to get people excited. But this is probably the most exciting it's going to be. And it's going to be a bit chaotic too, as we are adjusting and making big changes to the economy and as new things are coming in. So I think it's going to be a very exciting time. Um, and I mean, I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to see how players engage with it. But I know that for me, playing MMOs growing up, especially a lot of the early ones before a lot of the rough edges were polished, that was a lot of the excitement for me. Is, you know, there's a patch coming in that completely changes quite a lot of things. So I don't know. That's something I think that's important to keep in mind. Is this is early access. There's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of tuning of the economy, and we'll try to be transparent with everybody about how we're thinking about things and what we're changing and why we're changing it. But it is going to be a time of rapid change, and I think everybody should go into it hopefully excited about that and prepared for that reality.
Rapid change. I'm excited to be part of it too. So let's go. Chaos all the way. It's going to be good.
Yeah, moving on from chaos hours to chaos early access.
Exactly. I'm ready for it. How about you, Nico? You feeling ready?
We are very excited also. Even though it's the early access, the game is really, really fun. So for everyone that hasn't played yet, it's a very good moment to test it, even though then we are going to do improvements and some things are going to be fixed. The game at this point is already very fun and very, very good to play.
I couldn't agree more. Alrighty. Well, I'll let you guys get back to your important work, especially since I think we have a rift in a few hours. I don't know when this video comes out, but guys, we have a rift in a few hours our time, viewers.
Cool.
Thank you both again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.